so that we can then share this. Excellent, thank you. So that we can then share this with other colleagues who are perhaps not able to join us today. We did run one of these sessions on Friday, and this is the second of them. I can see we have somebody, Karen, saying that you can't see the slides. Are they visible now? I'm assuming everyone can see them unless they tell me differently.
I can't see them. Yeah, I can't see them, but I'm wondering if it's my end.
Possibly. I think, yes, everybody else seems to be able to see them. We are going to send out a copy of the slides after this, so I'm hoping that you managed to get to see some of it. Okay, we've still got a few extra people joining us, but I'm going to start anyway. My name is Lynn Tabone, and I am responsible for the implementation of T-levels on the ground, so all of the work that we do with the providers. And I think what you should be aware of already is that the T-levels is very much a co-creation that we're doing. It's not we're putting T-levels out there and we're asking you to deliver them. It is about working jointly with you. The qualifications are not all developed yet. We're doing that in stages, and it's really important that we have provider input into all stages of this process. So we'll be linking you into all of those sorts of conversations and working with you over the next 2 years to make sure that everything runs smoothly up to delivery. So if we move on to the next slide, please, Vicky. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of the support and the ways of working with you, the plan is that you will have an allocated person from the ESFA who will provide you with some support and challenge throughout the process, be the first port of call for all of your questions. And we'll have, as part of that, minimum termly conversations. Most of those will be linked to the planning that you're doing so that we can look at how your planning's moving on, look at if there are any particular issues or challenges that we need to resolve, and all of those sorts of conversations that we have. Any challenges, issues get fed back into the centre, and we work on that to try to make sure that we resolve them and we can move forward with the whole programme. Now, those of you that are colleges will undoubtedly already know who your local ESFA contact is, because you have one already that works with you on other things. Those of you that are schools, academies, university technical colleges and so on, you don't have an automatic local person that you work with on a regular basis. For the moment, we have assigned myself and Tracy Evans from my team to be your key contacts over the last few months for any queries. But from November, we will have some additional resource in place so that we'll be able to assign you to a specific person who will start working with you from that stage on the planning, and we will need to get some dates in the diary for some conversations in the new year. Okay. We will try to make sure that we've got plenty of opportunities over the next 18 months for sharing practice, networking with others and so on. Obviously, when that can safely be done face-to-face, then that is the ideal situation for most people, so that you get to actually talk to people. But in the absence of that, we will facilitate a number of online web-based networking events, practice sharing and so on. Okay, so we'll do our best to make sure that you feel connected to others and put you in contact with others when we can. So the main methods of planning are an implementation plan that we will ask you to complete twice a year in the run-up to delivery. And that's really essential to tell us how things are going, where the challenges lie, what we need to deal with at particular points. And we'll also be collecting information on what you plan to deliver, when you plan to deliver it, how many students, that sort of thing, which helps us to do the planning around T-levels, but also to make sure that you get the right amount of upfront funding. So as part of this session, we're going to look at the implementation plan and what the requirements are for that. and then look at something that we call our statistical annex, which is our data collection method. Okay. You also will have access to a range of other interactions, support and so on. I'm sure that most of you, I hope that you're all aware actually of the T-Level Professional Development Programme, the sessions that are available, the planning tool that's available there, and also the various bits of the programme that will help to support staff to be ready to deliver T-levels. If you aren't, then we can make sure that we share the link again with you. But that is something that you would have, we would have spoken about back in the early summer when we had our first welcome event, and there will be links in the documentation you've received so far. The other really key thing is that you start to engage with the awarding organisations that are developing the qualifications that you are planning to deliver from 2022. Now, there are obviously the early 3 qualifications are already out there and available, and you can download that information and start planning. But some of the qualifications are still in development for 2021 and for 2022. So for those T-levels, we are trying to make sure that our providers are engaged in those conversations, see some of the upfront materials so that they can see how that's developing and can start to prepare for staff training that is needed and for getting ready for teaching and getting staffing in place. So those sorts of things are really important parts of this puzzle. So before we move on, are there any questions about support? I can't see any in the chat. Sophie, I don't think there's anything, is there?
No, there's nothing coming through at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, well then if we can move on to the next slide, Vicky, please.
Just one moment, Ellie.
Oh, okay.
It's just a question saying, how do I find out my local ESFA contact?
Right, well, if you email into our mailbox, then we can tell you who that is. So Sophie, if you could at some point paste that in the chat again, that would be helpful, please. The T-Level mailbox, thank you. And I think we have another question there as well.
Yeah, it's how/where we find out which courses are developed as of yet.
Right, well, we have the first 3 T-levels that are developed and out there, and that's the construction, design, planning and surveying. The digital, oh gosh, what's the title of it? Somebody help me out here, Vicky or Sophie. I've completely got a mental blank here. It's the digital one, which is about developing the things like web-based materials and so on. And we have the education and childcare T-level that is already developed. The qualifications are approved and out there. Oh, we've got some background noise. I'm not sure who that is. But can you put yourselves on mute? Thank you. So we've got 3 that are out there. The rest are in development at the moment. There is information about that on the gov.uk, but we can always send you some specific information about that. We can perhaps put something in the newsletter, can't we, Sophie? Right, so moving on then, these are the 2 items that I was speaking about, the implementation plan, which is the thing that helps us to work with you over the next 18 months or so to see how you're progressing and to be able to help you along with that and identify what the challenges are. And the statistical annex, which is the method by which we collect information from you that informs both our planning, knowing who is planning to deliver which T-level so that we can link you with the right awarding bodies to start working with, but also to feed into the funding of T-levels, because T-levels being larger programmes have a higher level of funding, and we want to make sure that you get the funding up front to be able to deliver those. So we have asked you to return both of those items to us on the 18th of December, which is at the end of this term, and then there will be a further version of both that will be required in May, 3rd of May in 2021. and then we will move into the sort of final year of working with you after that. Okay, so this is the earliest return on the 18th of December, and this is what we're going to now speak about. So if we move on to the next slide, please. Okay, here is where I'm going to hand over to Amanda Fairless from my team, and she has been working on the implementation plan for the last couple of years. We initially started working with 2020 providers and have started working with 2021 providers, and at every iteration we've tried to simplify that plan, make sure that it is more suitable to the needs of the providers and giving us the information we need jointly to be able to work together. And Amanda's going to talk you through the version we have. I'm hoping that everybody has already seen a version of the plan and the guidance that goes alongside it. Both were made available at the very end of July, beginning of August, and we sent out links in the T-Level newsletter, and that is available on the supporting T-Levels web page that is available on gov.uk. And Sophie, again, perhaps that's something you could post the link to, please, just in case people haven't seen it, but you should have seen a version of it. So Amanda, can I hand over to you to talk people through how that will work and how we've got there? Amanda, can you manage to get yourself off of mute?
Yep, off mute now. Thanks, Lynn.
Excellent.
Okay, so hi everyone. As Lynn's mentioned, I'm Amanda and I'm responsible for the implementation plan design and process. The slides I'm going to take you through will provide guidance on how to complete the different sections of the plan template. Before we start, just to note, and as Lynn's touched on, I hope you've already seen a copy of it, there's two templates within the implementation plan. So there is a T-level template, and that one concentrates on the considerations that you need to make related to the T-levels themselves, such as curriculum planning and space. And then there's a provider level template, and that concentrates on the considerations at an institutional level. So that's things such as management and internal communications and finance. Moving on to the next slide, please, Vicky. Thanks. So to start looking at the implementation plan, we're going to start with the position field, and you can see how this looks within the template at the top of the slide there in green. So within each of the two templates, there are two position fields, the description of your initial position and the description of your final position. The guidance to complete them both is the same, but you complete the two initial position fields the first time you return the plan this year, and the two final position fields the second time you return the plan this year. As it says on the slide, what you need to do is explain your position and the reasons for your readiness rating, and the readiness rating is something we'll cover on the next slide that we talk about. So within the implementation plan guidance, there is a consideration guide at the end of that. And as a minimum, we ask you cover your position against each of the considerations listed in that guide. You can include anything else as well, though, that you feel is relevant. So as a minimum, cover the considerations, but also add anything else in that you may have been doing that we haven't listed. The considerations are split into provider level and T-level level. So in the example on the slide, you can see the bullets at the bottom that listed for the student's consideration in the consideration guide. And in the top there, where we've got a completed position, it says, we are planning a class size of 14 minimum in the first instance. The maximum will be determined by the physical resources required in space allocation. This will be monitored as recruitment and conversion continue. Students are likely to be a mix of new and progress and level 2 learners. I'm not going to read the whole slide, but what that does is that entire example covers each of those bullets that are listed below. So you do that for each consideration that's in the guide to cover each and every one off. And then, as I say, then also include anything else that you can think of that you think may be relevant. The other thing to note is, although it's not covered in my example, because this position for the T-level routes covers all the T-level routes, you may want to be more specific. So say, for example, we are planning a class size of 14 for all T-level routes, except construction, where we plan a class size of 10. So I'll pause there to see if there's any questions. I can't see any.
So there's one just come through there, Amanda, that says what is meant by what type of student targeting?
Right. So this is about the types of students that you envisage to be going to be studying on the T-level route. So say, for example, you think it's going to be mainly students that are ready for level 3, or you might think maybe there's some at level 2, or they're currently at level 2, but they think that they're going to be ready to reach T-level, and you would still engage those ones as well. So it's all about where the student is in the learning at the moment, what types of students you're targeting. Is that clear enough? I'm hoping yes. How should they be described? It's entirely up to yourself how you describe them. We want to know what type of students you'll be targeting, but how you describe them and how you differentiate between them is entirely up to yourself. We don't have a standard means of how to describe them. Does that clear that one up?
It seems
Lovely.
so, Amanda. So
Thank
you can.
you. Okay, so if we could move on to the next slide, please, Vicky. So this one covers readiness ratings. So again, you can see how this looks within the implementation plan at the top of the slide where it's green. So for each consideration listed in the guide, you need to assess your position and provide a rating of either engaged, actions identified, plan in place, plan being implemented, plan progressed, or ready. And at the bottom of the slide in blue there, the descriptions of each rating are shown, and there's also an example using the professional readiness category. I'm not going to read through all of that. It's there. You'll be getting a copy of the slides, and it's also in the completions guidance itself. One thing to note, whilst these ratings are quite subjective, we have got an example in there, as I said, using the professional readiness category. It's not an exact science, but it does give you some guidance on what you should be using for your ratings. So to do a quick example, using professional readiness again, if you have a development plan in place signed off by senior managers, you're having regular meetings for the owners of actions to update and report progress, you're engaging with employees for industry upskilling, you've completed your skills map and using the curriculum content, but you still need some further funding information in planning any additional resource, you would be likely to rate the professional readiness consideration as plan in place. But then as things progress, you might now be also monitoring the progress of all your actions, aware of any issues and have mitigated for these, and you might be beginning staff recruitment and all your staff training, CPD and industry upskilling are scheduled. So you would then be likely to rate the professional readiness consideration plan being implemented. Just a gentle reminder as well, you must complete a rating for every consideration that's listed in the implementation plan template. And then once you've rated each consideration, you then need to provide for each template an overall readiness rating based on the same categories that we've already discussed. And it's taken into account the ratings that you provided for all the other categories and the detail that you've provided in your position field. I'll just pause there to see if there's any more questions.
And Sophie's posted a message about how you can use the hands up function as well, if you can't quite see the comments or anything. We don't seem to have any questions for you at the moment, Amanda.
That's good. So if we could move on to slide 8, please, Vicky. So what we're now looking at is a copy of what it looks like in the implementation plan for the actions in the on-track fields. So the actions to be completed should list the main steps you need to take to be ready to deliver T-levels in 2022. They need to relate back to the position field you have completed. So for example, if in your current position field you've put that you anticipate recruiting 3 new members of staff, then the main steps that you will take to do this should be provided here. When you return the plan for the second time, please don't delete any of these actions, just add to them as necessary. So it's an ongoing document for the whole year. And also you would need to note down who owns the actions and the target completion date, and when they have been completed, if you could also mark them off on the actual completion date column. The example in the slide that we're looking at now demonstrates some of the potential steps for the student consideration that we were talking about in the last slide. So, for example, planning level 2 progression events, promoting specifically at open evening events, and there's a whole load of things there. Just to give you some ideas of the kind of things that we use, we've pulled these from old implementation plans that we've looked at. Then looking at the on-track field, there is one on-track field per template, and here you input whether taking into account everything that you've input into the implementation plan template, do you feel you're on track to deliver T levels in 2022? So this would mean that you've completed everything you need to do currently and feel you have all further action planned and organised. And it's a simple answer in here, it's either yes or no. So I'll pause there because I can see that there's some questions. So Claire, you've asked, where do we find the professional readiness categories? So all the categories and the considerations within them are at the end of the completion guidance. Is there anyone who hasn't seen a copy of the completion guidance for the implementation plan yet? Okay, so there's a few people. Do you think Sophie or Vicky, we could maybe circulate a copy again?
We're going to send out an email on Friday that will include the slides, any questions we've been unable to answer, and a recording of this. We'll include it there, if that's okay.
Oh,
we'll put
great.
the link into
Thank
there
you.
for
That's
them.
great. Thanks,
No problem.
Vicky.
Thank you.
And then I think there's another question. Are there two different implementation plans? We only seem to have the 2-page document. This doesn't follow the PowerPoint slides. Any ideas? It is a 2-page document, the implementation plan in Word. I don't know, Kimberly, if you might want to just speak and say how it differs to what you're looking at now.
Can you take yourself off mute, Kimberly? Oh no microphone. So can you mention it in the chat? Or shall we come back to you later? I think proceed for the moment, Amanda.
Okay, that's me
That's
done on
okay.
implementation plans unless there are any more questions. And Kimberly, maybe if you want to contact me later and we can discuss it together, if that's okay.
Kimberly's saying it starts with the T-level template.
Yeah.
Which is
And then there should,
and then it should have a second template on the second page.
Yeah. And then Anita's saying it looks the same as the slides look the same as the template to me.
So I think just go back to it and you'll see that it does match. So I think I think we have some more questions for you, Amanda.
Can we have a couple of previously complete examples from other institutions from the first wave of institutions who have been through the process? We do have some exemplar plans from earlier on. I think the only problem with issuing them is they won't be in the same format as this new plan, because previously, as we've already mentioned and as Lynn has mentioned, the plan was a lot bigger, it was a lot more cumbersome, it required a lot more input, but you could still gather from there some good ideas. So I would be quite happy to circulate those exemplar old plans. But this is the first time this template itself's been completed, so we don't have any examples of this one yet.
Yeah.
Amanda, we could include that in the email on Friday, and I'll speak to you tomorrow about that. Is that okay?
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Vicky.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. That's really helpful. And I know Claire's said that asked if we can have a link to the plan. Sophie has posted in the chat a link to the supporting T-levels on gov.uk. And if you go in there, there is an immediate link on that page that shows you to get into implementation plans, and that is where all of the plans and the guidance are. So do we have anything else? I think that's it, isn't it? Oh.
Can someone create a template as an example? Is that, do you mean, Nita, there in addition to the exemplar?
I think that's
ones?
for us giving an exemplar.
Yeah.
We can have a look and see whether we can do one of those quickly for you.
I think I can.
That away. Yeah. And thank you, Sophie. Sophie's just posted the link again, which gets you direct to the implementation plan. So thank you, Sophie. OK, so shall we move on then? If you finished on the implementation plans, marvellous. So we'll move on to the T-level data returns. And if we go on to the first slide, the next slide, sorry for that. OK, so I thought it was worth just being clear about what this document is, why we need this information and what we use it for. We really make the attempt to only collect from you the information we absolutely need for a purpose. We're not just doing this for fun, obviously, but we are aware that anything that we ask from you in terms of the implementation planning, data supply or anything is a burden on you and can take away from other things that you're trying to do. So we try to make sure that we slim this down and only collect what we need. Now, at the moment, we are collecting this information through an Excel spreadsheet, and we're calling it the statistical annex. And we're sending out to all of the providers who are approved to deliver T-levels. It is individualised, though, to each provider, so that instead of just sending out a spreadsheet where it's not particularly clear what you might need to put into that spreadsheet, we are making sure that this is tailored specifically to you. It will be clear on there what you have already said you're planning to deliver and are approved to deliver in terms of T-levels for 2022, and we'll lock all of the cells that are not relevant to you. So hopefully it will be really, really clear to complete. And this is a lesson that we have learned over the last 2 years of working with our earlier providers, so that we've gradually, again, tried to constantly look at improving and simplifying to make it easier for people to complete. OK, so this is where you will give us some information on your learner numbers for T-levels, but also if you have any intention of delivering the T-level transition programme. And as part of those T-levels, what areas of what occupational specialisms will you be wanting to deliver as part of that? OK, and that all feeds into a number of things that we do. We feed it into the planning, so we need to know who's planning to deliver what so that we can make sure that you get the support that you need, make sure that you're linked to the awarding organisations that are developing the qualifications that you're planning to deliver and are part of all of those conversations. It is also used for us to be able to give you information around what funding you might get next summer. We'll give you that information, but also within your 2022-2023 allocation, main funding allocation, we will, from one of next year's returns, be able to give you all of the funding that you need at the start of that academic year. And obviously we need to fund you based on, at that point, what we know that you are planning to deliver. OK, we also use this information to report to ministers, to manage the budget around T-levels and a whole range of other things. Now, as part of this, we are also in that data, we're really aware that not everything that you might be planning right now might be what you're planning when it gets closer to the delivery of T-levels. We tend to find that our providers might think about, oh, we'll deliver this qualification, this number of students, and actually the plans might change slightly as we move in across the next 6 months of planning. You might find that actually a different T-level is better for you, or a different range of students are the ones that are suitable for a T-level, so the numbers you've given us might change. So this is the early return in this December that is sort of your stake in the ground about what your intentions are now. And then as we work with you through your implementation planning, we understand that over the next 6 months or so that might change, okay? And that is absolutely fine. So if we can move on to the next slide, please, Vicky. So the plan of what we're going to collect then, and this is your first return on December, which you should receive your individualized statistical annex Excel spreadsheet from our mailbox, which is called statistical-annexes.gov.uk. And that will come out to you on the week of the 19th of October. So that's fairly imminent now. And as part of that return, we'll be asking you to tell us which T-levels you're planning to deliver and how many students for 2022-23. How many students you might have on that following year so that we can get an idea of how you're planning to scale that up. And also numbers for that following year of 2024-2025. And again, this is all a picture, an early picture of how you're planning to deliver this. We'll also be asking you if you might want to be delivering the T-level transition programme from 2022-23, and the reason that we need to know this is because we will then link you into the support programme that we have, which is focused on working closely with any providers planning to deliver a T-level transition programme and making sure that we look at what elements might be part of that programme, because that's an ongoing development phase of work. We'll also be asking for your indicator numbers, your first guess at that for those transition programs, and we'll be asking you in terms of the T-levels that you're planning to deliver, which occupational specialisms as part of that might you be interested in. So for example, as part of the current T-level construction, design, surveying and planning, there are 4 specialisms within that students could focus on that are around things like building engineering, the design aspect and other things as well. So it's getting you to think about what your curriculum for T-levels might look like and what we might need to fund, because all of those different bits of T-levels and the specialisms all have potentially different funding rates attached to them. And it's getting to that point where we'll be able to fund you accurately. So I think that's probably all we need to say on that. As I've said already, we know that what you plan to deliver might morph slightly over the next 6 months or so, and we'll work with you on that. So if we can move on to the next slide, Vicky. This gives you a bit of a view of what the statistical annex will look like when it comes to you. It's very highly coloured, but that's for a reason. And this is to try to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to complete the bits you need to complete. So what you can see in there is that we'll be putting in data that is related to what you have said when you initially decided that you wanted to deliver T-levels. It will say what you told us you wanted to deliver, students that might be for, and that's in the pale yellow cells. And then the very bright yellow cells are where you will need to put some information in before you return it to us. So it's really clear what cells you need to complete. The greyed out cells that are on there are where you'll see those where there's a T-level that isn't relevant to you, or you're not approved to deliver it at the moment, or you've not said you're planning to deliver that T-level. Okay, so that's what you'll see. And if we can move on to the next slide, please, Vicky. Okay, so this obviously tells us when you've got to return it. And we've already said the 18th of December, and I've talked about our dedicated mailbox for that. In the previous slide that I showed you, I mentioned the greyed out cells, which is areas where you're not intending to deliver or not approved to deliver at the moment. If you wish to make a change to your plans for delivery and do a different T-level instead, then there is a part of the template that allows you to do that and tell us about which changes you want to make. Okay, so there's a T-level change request tab that will enable you to do that. And then when we get that back, we'll have a look at that and make sure that you are eligible to deliver those T-levels that you want to deliver. Because as you'll remember, we set out a criteria at the beginning of this, which requires every provider who wants to deliver a particular T-level to already have some historic delivery of relevant qualifications. And the key reason around that is the fact that we need to make sure, because we're working with you on the development of these T-levels, that the providers that we have on board are able to engage in that work during this development phase. Okay, so I mentioned the ability to change over the next few months, and as it says here, by the time we get to May 2021 return, we would expect your plan for delivery of particular T-levels to be fixed at that point. So you can change up to that point, but I think it would be exceptional if you would change the plan for delivery beyond that, because we are then in the final run up to delivery of the T-levels. We need to make sure that you're going to have all of the capacity in place, the learning and development of staff in place and things like that as part of the plan to do that. So we wouldn't really expect to see any changes to T-level delivery beyond May 2021 return. And on this slide as well is some information about how to raise queries, again through that mailbox, so that we can respond to you really quickly if you have any issues around this. Okay, so before we move on, I think there are some questions, Sophie. I can't quite see them from here.
Yeah, there's been a couple of questions come in. The first one I believe has already been answered, which is, has the statistical annex already been sent out? And that I believe is coming out on the week commencing 19th October. Right.
Yes.
The next question is, if student numbers don't match, will there be a clawback of the money if the student numbers aren't met? And on the flip side, will there be late payments for extra students if there's over recruitment?
Okay, on that one, we have published a web page on gov.uk, which is how T-levels are funded. Okay, again, we can give you can send you the link to that as part of what's going to go out later, Vicky. If we can add that, please, I'll send you the link for that. And that does explain that we will fund T-levels up front based on planned numbers. And then when we start delivery, we will look at how many students are on programme by using the ILR data or the school census data in the autumn. And we will look at all of that and do a reconciliation. There is a tolerance, though, for delivery. So it's not, say, if you said you would have 20 students and you've only got 16, it doesn't automatically mean we're going to take back money, because there is a tolerance before we take back any money, which is at the moment for 2020-21, that's a 40%, so it's quite generous. We know that this is speculative at the moment, and we want to make sure that we aren't, being unreasonable around any of this. So there is quite a generous margin for error on all of that planning. But if providers over recruit because there is more interest than you'd expected, again, because we know this is all fairly speculative, we're up front and we never know how many bums on seats we'll have when we get there in September, then yes, we have said we will fund all of those students in full. Of course, we do that as part of that in-year review of the data. So that money isn't going to get out to you if there's additional money until sometime in March at the earliest, because we have to wait until we have all of that data. We don't have all of that in and processed until about January to start looking at it. Okay, so I hope that answers that question, but we will send out the link to you to the funding information, and it's probably quite important that you have a look at that so that you understand how all of that will work. But we've tried to be super reasonable about all of this. So do we have any more?
Yep, so the next question is, will students be funded for 3 years if they do the transition programme? Example, they do the transition programme in year 12 and then go on to do the T-level in years 13 and 14.
Yes. So long as providers are, so long as students are starting a qualification before their 19th birthday, they're fundable. Okay, do we have any other questions? No, I don't think so. Okay, so if we just move on again, I think we're right at the end here. So this, even if we don't have any more questions generally about the statistical annex or the implementation plan at the moment, you can send those in, as we've said, through the statistical annex mailbox or through the mailbox that Sophie's already linked on here. She has put several other links on there as well, but this is your opportunity to ask any other questions that you have at the moment. I can't see any coming up. Just okay, no, we've got some that are being typed now, so.
Does will T-levels be funded for 19+ as part of the lifetime skills guarantee?
We are looking at this at the moment, whether we can fund adult T-levels. There is some work that's going on to look at how that fits with what adults need and how they learn best, because obviously some adults are already in work and want to do learning alongside, which a T-level, being a full-time qualification, doesn't necessarily fit with. But there's quite a lot of work that policy colleagues are doing at the moment on how we might do that in the future. Any other questions before we call a halt? Okay, well, the team are going to get something out to you. We have one more, I think, here.
So this one says, what about networking, subject specific? Can we get a list of emails of people who are in charge at each institution?
Okay, well, what we're planning to do is set up some networking sessions, and there is likely to be a focus on the subject specific stuff. So you will see on the T-levels website that Sophie's already pasted there, the supporting T-levels, where you can access all of the information that we share, which is including anything around T-levels. There is a calendar on there, and as part of the newsletter as well, I think we usually put things in that on a regular basis, don't we, Sophie, as well?
Yes, so the newsletter comes out once every fortnight, and that is the best place for you to find out any new news regarding T-level policy or events and webinars. And the question just come through from Claire Whiting and says, which are the best contact details for this? And it would be the Roots Readiness email that I've just posted above. That's generally where you'll get any information regarding.
Yeah. And on the event side of things, do have a look at the things that are already in the plan. And if there are things that you think you need that you don't have at the moment, then do send us a message through the Roots Readiness mailbox, because what we're attempting to do is make sure that we are delivering events, even if they have to be virtual events at the moment, obviously, that are going to give you what you need and the opportunity to network. So any suggestions around that, of how we should run that to best suit you, or the content of that, always very welcome, because we want to make sure these are suited for you. And I think we've answered all of the questions that we have at the moment. So Vicky and Sophie are going to send out a copy of the recorded webinar, the T-level implementation planning documents, and anything else that we've said that we will send, such as links to the supporting T-levels page, the funding page, and anything else that we said. And that will come out, when is it, Vicky, that you're planning to send that out? At the end of this week, did you say?
We plan to send it out on Friday.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we don't seem to have any other questions coming through. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that's been useful to you, but as always, do send any questions in to us through the mailbox. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.